More than one person in this room has told me that their dream is to own and operate in a hotel.
Really?
I will not disclose who that person
Whoa.
is.
Save yourselves the trouble.
But
No, I'm just kidding.
I was so I was hoping you would shed some light on the glamorous side of running a business and the nitty-gritty side of running a hospitality business. And particularly as you come from a creative background, how do you think that background has informed the way you run your hospitality business?
Okay, sure. I'm going to break that down into a few bits. So, first of all, in terms of my creative background for what I've done previously before going into hospitality, of course, it gave me a little bit more of an idea when it comes to aesthetics and design and style and things like that, especially when it comes to the art, which is a major core value of Ovolo as a brand, right? And we also have another brand called Mamaca, which we'll get into later. But for Ovolo, art plays a huge role. And so I would say it made me feel a little bit confident in going into a role that requires a lot of design and project management, things like that. But ultimately, what I would say my previous background, what it really gave me in general, not only the confidence for certain design elements, but it gave me the confidence in being able to execute, right? When we were running the gallery, we had to do so many things by ourselves. We weren't a size gallery where we could hire art handlers with white gloves and things like that, It was me and Xander wearing the construction gloves and carrying things. And again, we had to really put in blood, sweat, and tears into making it work. And there was a lot of things about it that we were able to make work, Again, we were written about in the New York Times. We did an exhibition in New York, Singapore, Zurich. And these are all things that we did while managing our own P&L. While managing a team. At one point, we had 3 exhibitions running at the same time, 1 in Zurich and 2 in Hong Kong, right? So we were operationally pretty sound. And that came down to our ability to operate and execute, right? So that gave me a lot of confidence going into Ovolo that I had a little bit of experience from being able to effectively manage a team, essentially. If I did not have that confidence, I feel like I would have been a lot more unsure of myself and my ability had I not had that experience, right? So I would say that played a big role. Now, going to the hotel industry, it is not as glamorous as you think. The kinds of brands that we are and the business that Ovolo is that right now we're owner-operator, right? So that means that we're actually combining 2 different major parts of the industry under one umbrella. So the owner part is owning the asset, right? We own the property. The operator part is actually operating the asset. Majority of hotels that you see around the world and, even in Hong Kong, things like that, there are separate companies that own the asset that then hire management companies to come in and run the property. Now, typically these management companies will also license you the brand, right? So let's say I have a building that's got the capability of 100 hotel rooms. I'll do what's called an operator select, and then the likes of, depending on the quality of the building, the quality of the asset, the likes of Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, Marriott, various brands of different calibers will pitch to you and say, this is the performance we believe we can achieve for you at your property. Pick us, right? There's a lot more to go into detail about that, but I'll leave it at that for now. And now it's gone even further where there's a lot of companies that are actually extracting the brand component out of the operations, and that's called white label management. So you can own the building, right? And then you can decide that you like a brand and franchise that brand or create your own brand, then hire someone who knows how to operate a hotel to come in and do the operations for you under your picked brand, whether it's, again, a franchise brand or a brand that you've created. The Hampton Inn. That's a real hotel name, by the way. That's a real brand, okay? So it's being segmented that much. And just to go back to the asset side, that can also be segmented where you have multiple investors or owners for one asset, like a syndicate, right? Or a fund. And sometimes that fund or owner will elect a separate asset manager that will do the, operator select and things like that. So there's 4 verticals ultimately, right? There's owner/investor, asset manager, operator, and then brand. And Ovolo is unique in the fact that we do all 4 of them right now, right? Now we're exploring going asset light, and we've announced our first franchise property that's going to be coming up in Perth in 2028. But right now we do all of those things. And that means that we're constantly juggling a lot of different aspects of different businesses in order to achieve a desired outcome, right? So let's just take the operations and the brand. Let's leave the asset side out of it for now. Operations for hotels is very, very painstakingly difficult. And the reason for that is because your hotel, any hotel, majority of hotels, okay, are 24/7, 365 businesses. That means around the clock, you always have one of your teammates that's on duty or working, at least one teammate, okay? At the same time, you have people checking in and checking out every single day. You are very susceptible to market conditions. Unlike a long stay business or, apartments that you rent out, things like that, where you have a guaranteed rent for 1 year or 2 years or whatever it is, or 1 month in the case of long stay. For hotels, it could be just one night, right? Our average length of stay at Ovolo Hotels is 1.9 nights, okay? That's nothing. That means every 1.9 nights, so to speak, we have to change the sheets, do a clean of the room, etc., right? It is very, very intensive. There's a lot of different costs that you have to take into account that aren't necessarily factored into those as well, right? Like, for example, if you have an F&B venue, if you have a spa, if you have other operating departments, how does that all factor into operating a hotel? So again, the glamorous side of it isn't really there, in my opinion, to be honest with you. That's how I see it. I would say the glamorous side of it for me is being able to do something I enjoy. I love operations for hospitality because it's so intense. I have ADD, right? Some form of ADD. And for operating a hotel, you have to have your mind on 10 different things that are happening all at the same time in different places, right? I love that feeling because it makes me feel alive. And that's one of the reasons why I'm grateful to do what I get to do. But in terms of the glamorous part, you walk into the hotel, oh, Mr. Junjunwala, welcome back, this, that, oh, here's a hot towel, here's a glass of champagne. None of that. I'm a mule. Okay, when I go from here to Australia, which I go every month, I'm taking samples of name tags and paper and things like that, and I'm hauling it. I'm putting it in the overhead compartment if it's got a battery in it, like portable lights and things like that. It's again a lot of fun, but I would say the glamorous part isn't there. I would also say a lot of the reason for that is because we operate like a startup in a lot of ways. Ovolo is still in its infancy as a business. It's a hotel brand. We're only, 14 years old, 13, 14 years old, right? So if you look at other hotel brands that have been around for almost 100 years, if not longer, we're just a baby. We're still figuring out who we are. We're still trying to figure out our identity. We're like a rebellious teenager that's finally, about to go through puberty. That's how I see it in many ways. And I think that's really exciting because that allows us as a brand to still be very elastic and shape what the experience looks like for us in the long run. But again, that for me is the glamorous part. That's exciting to be able to shape a brand and play a role in coming up with what our guest experience looks like that can potentially have a positive impact on people that come and stay with us, that could then potentially have a ripple effect on those people that they interact with. And I guess ultimately what I'm saying is that I'm naive enough to believe that by having a hotel experience that has positive impacts on people that come and stay with us, that can have a ripple effect and ultimately make the world a better, more interesting place to live. I'm naive and delirious enough to believe that. And that's why I've dedicated my life to this. That's why I have my reputation rolled up in it. And that's why I don't want to do anything else.